Hey guys, Daddy here. I know I've done a couple of videos on the Membrane Sil tarp, and you guys are probably tired of seeing them, but obviously I'm still enamored with my tarp. I wanted to kind of expand on the last video that I did, which was a little bit of rain testing. Unfortunately, it was just a little bit of a light rain on that opportunity. Well, as things would have it, the stars have aligned, or maybe I should say the weather fronts have aligned, and we've got a big storm that's supposed to be coming through this afternoon. So now's my opportunity to do a heavy rain test, a big storm test with my Membrane Sil tarp. While I was doing that, I wanted to kind of cover a couple of other things too with you. I've made one addition to my tarp, and we'll talk about that in just a second, but I kind of want to cover the Tarp Worms from Dutchware Gear. We're going to go in a little more in depth on these guys here as well. But the first thing I want to show you is my new Ridgeline. So what I did is I went to Dutchware Gear and I got some Dyneema, some green Dyneema from Dutch, and using that for my Ridgeline for my tarp. Now, obviously this is way overkill for a Ridgeline for a tarp, but the beauty is that green, come this way, that matches so these are the Tarp Worms by Dutchware. As you can see, it is a small length of shot cord. Mine, I have placed the Lawson green, lime green glow wire or reflective line on there, again because it matches my tarp. So I put that on there myself, but you can get these from Dutchware where he already has a Lawson reflective line on it. Unfortunately, at the moment of this production of this video, Dutch doesn't do the lime green. Now, he may do that in the future, he may not. That's strictly his choice. We appreciate Dutch nonetheless because he provides us with so many other grand and fabulous products. Thanks, Dutch. What you have is a piece of shock line down to this little piece of titanium here. Now, what I like so much about the Tarp Worms is their adjustability. Now, you saw I just pulled that right off, that little hitch that was on there, and you can get a feel for how long the shock cord is there. But I can crank that down, and I've said this many times before, I like to crank down hard on my tarps. But all I got to do is pinch that. I'm going to make a little loop, and I got to make sure that the leading end of the line goes underneath the line that I had there. So I got to kind of get a bite on it there. Goes on the end, and ta-da! Everything's smooth. Nothing gets messed up there. The thing I like about this also is the fact that the adjustment for these is generally very close to the corner of my tarp. Why is that important? Well, for me, I'm not having to come outside of the tarp in order to do an adjustment at the bottom. I can do this from underneath and I get a little bit less wet. My hands will probably get wet, my arms will get wet, likely not much more than that, and that's kind of important to me. So there we are. But I love these things. They are just super easy to adjust. They're rock steady, they don't move, and there's quite a bit of stretch on that. And with the Membrane Sil tarp that I've had made here and how this is working, there is a good bit of give in this tarp. So that shock cord's really important to kind of keep that pitch the way I want it, especially in heavy rain and high winds. So we're going to take a moment and we're going to do an aside, and I'm going to basically take one of the Tarp Worms that I've pulled off of my tarp, and I'm going to show you how to put the Lawson line on there. Now, the thing that you want to do is not make the same mistake that I made. Well, what was that mistake? Well, the mistake was the first time I bought the wrong size reflective wire. I got the 1/8 size, the 3mm line, which is too big to go inside the hole. So what you really want is the 2mm, the 3/32 reflective line. That's what you want to get. As far as other lines that you can use with this, I have had tie-out lines with the Tarp Worms that were out of Zing It, out of Lash It. The trick is you just got to have a diameter that's 3/32 or slightly smaller. So 1.75 is really good. It's a little loose. It runs through really easy. So you want to make sure that you've got a knot on the end or some kind of stopper to keep that from coming completely out when you're using it. So that's kind of key. But otherwise, there's lots of things, lots of lines that you can use with the Tarp Worms. Now, I'll tell you this too. I also know that all of these lines are hugely overkill for a tarp. They're too strong. I believe the Lawson line is rated up to 200 pounds, if I'm not mistaken, maybe a little bit less, certainly up to 100 pounds. I know the Zing It is up to 500 pounds. The Lash It is in the same neighborhood or slightly less, I'm assuming. All of that is hugely overbuilt, overrated for a simple tarp tie-out. Now there's been a really good thread on the forum the last few days about tarp lines and what strength you need. I think some of the research, albeit very unscientific research, that's been done is that you need something that'll handle about 50 pounds, no more. And as far as the stretch or the load that you're getting on that shock cord, you're looking at anywhere from 5 up to 10 pounds of pressure on that, and that's all you're really getting put on those tarp corners and that kind of thing. So again, I know it's all overkill. The main reason why I use the reflective wire, first and foremost, is because it's reflective. I try to be as stealthy as I can in the woods, but when it gets dark, I hate tripping over my tarp lines. And the other thing is, as I've mentioned already, it matches my tarp. So there we go. What are you going to do? You got to love the OCD in everybody. So we're going to take an aside and we're going to show you how to put this on the line, and then we'll flash back, put it actually on the tarp, and everything will be great. Okay guys, so I'm going to show you just real quick how to set up the Tarp Worms. You'll see here, this is the Tarp Worm as you would get it from Dutchware. Basically it's a piece of shock cord, probably roughly about a 12-inch piece, I would say, maybe a little less, got a knot in it, and then there's the actual Tarp Worm piece itself. You can see the little hole in it, and beautifully simplistic, but amazingly intelligent in its use. So I have that. You can get it already strung with a Lawson line on it, or I'm sure Dutch would do it with a Zing It or Lash It line on it if you chose that. Just got to ask. Put that in the comments in the order section. I'm sure he'll take care of you beautifully there. But I'm going to show you guys how to put on this Lawson line. Now this is 2mm reflective Lawson line. This is not a very long length. This goes on one of the door flaps for my tarp. I've simply done a loop in the end of it for that to attach to the stake, and then I'm going to do the rest. Now, this should seem really simple, that this little piece of 2mm line should 3/32, I can also call it that, should fit in that hole. But what winds up happening is when you push that in the hole, basically the sheath pushes back and then the cord just comes through, and it's a little hard to push and all that kind of stuff. You can cut it at an angle. You can do all kinds of other little tricks, but this is what I found that I liked. And basically what you do is you use a lighter, and I'm going to take and I'm just going to heat the end of that up. Get that kind of melting just a little bit. We're about to where, maybe a little too far there, but about to where I see it glistening. And what I'm trying to do is stretch that end out, kind of narrow it just a little bit, but also to get a little piece to come out on the end. I hope maybe you can see that. You can see it's kind of like a little needle point there. There I got some of that melted on my finger. Isn't that fun? It didn't burn me, folks. Don't try this at home. No, but at any rate, I'm gonna get that kind of to glisten up. Like I said, all I'm trying to do is get a little bit of a, kind of like a needle point right there. Now that one did just a right at perfect right there. See if you can see that right there. So that works really nice. Now all you do is I just take that little needle point, so to speak, slide that through there. Now notice how that just goes right through so beautifully. It's like threading a needle. Real simple, goes through. And there you are, just that fast. Now, the little needle point on the end works out being a real help, because the way I like to keep this on the tarp worm so that it doesn't pull back through is, again, I take my lighter, I light up that little bit of an end, and I'm going to rotate that around. I kind of want that to burn a little bit. I want to get a bubble on there. Get quite what I wanted right there. Hello. There we go. Come on, baby. Light my fire. There we go. And then I'm just going to take and cool that, let that cool naturally, and I'm just making a kind of a little button, if you will, on the end of that. Just letting that char plastic there cool and solidify into a nice little button. And if I've done that well, and I think I have, when that should that tarp worm come loose, which it shouldn't, it won't if you set it up correctly, if you lash it around the end or do your loop around the end properly. But should it come loose, you see I'm tugging on that really hard. That is not coming out. And it's nice and clean, really pretty. So all I gotta do is take that, put that on my tie out, and we're ready to go. Ta-da! Thanks, guys. About 11 o'clock. I'm hunkering down to go to bed, and Storm hasn't come in yet, but they are talking like it's going to be in roughly around 3, maybe 4 in the morning. High winds, 15, 20 miles an hour. Possibility of a little hail, possibility of a tornado. So Lord only knows what we're going to get tonight, but hey, here we go. We're going to test out the Membrane Sil tarp in heavy weather and see how it goes. Good news is we're in the backyard test lab, so if it gets really bad or something goes really wrong, I'm bailing, but shouldn't have to. I think she's going to do just great. So now we're only probably going to see the storm if it actually wakes me up, which is going to be another test. Chances are good it won't even wake me up, and I may sleep through the storm, but we'll see how it goes. All right, so maybe we'll see a storm later. All right, it's about 3:15 in the morning. Wind's blowing pretty good. It's raining pretty decent. It's raining a little harder than this. About 10 minutes ago, the clap of thunder woke me up. But other than that, it's not bad. So dry as a bone on the inside. Everything's performing well so far, so I'm going to go back to sleep. We'll see how this does. So that big clap of thunder around 3:15 this morning that I filmed a little earlier, that was the only thing out of the storms that woke me up, and I went right back to sleep, and I didn't hear much of anything all the rest of the night. It's about 7 o'clock right now. Yeah, according to my watch. And I'm not getting up. I am way too comfortable. I slept like a log the rest of the night, so it's not from lack of sleep, it's enjoyed sleep. The tarp
did fantastic. We talked about this a little bit in the thread the last time, but the sound is like no other tarp I've had. It just it's a deeper thud on the tarp. Very soothing, very soothing, really good. So that's some high quality sleep right there, folks. So I'm gonna get up in a little while. I don't know when, but I'll get up in a little while. We'll take a stroll around the tarp and check the line, see if anything moved, see what everything looks like. See you in a minute. Okay, well, I finally got up about an hour later. Ain't life grand. Man, everything looks great on the tarp. Everything looks fantastic. All the pullouts stayed exactly where I put them. Tarp worms held perfectly. Doors are deployed beautifully on this thing, man. I just love how that looks and how that functions. So a very successful night of rain testing. The tarp sheltered me so nicely. You can see from under here how the leaves are lighter there. Obviously that's from the protection of the tarp. But not only did the tarp keep me dry, but it protected scads of little roly-polies. They were all over my Crocs this morning when I woke up. I'm glad I looked at them things before I shoved my foot in there. So, excellent night of testing, guys. Hope you enjoyed it. I know I did. Got down to 65 last night. Fantastic night with the rain. The pitter-patter. Couldn't have asked for it to be any better. Thanks, guys.